Okay, recording is in progress.
Thank you. It is now 7:35. I'm calling the meeting to order. We do not yet have a quorum, but I'm going to ask Andrew to make his presentation, and then we'll fill in Jessica when she arrives, or hopefully she'll be here by the time this is still going on. So where is my agenda?
Share the screen first, so click on share screen.
Shared screen.
Share screen.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
That one right there. Below it? Right there. Yep.
We have
And click on share.
a quorum. So I have here, do you see this, Andrew?
Yes, I can see it. Thank you.
Okay, so I have your, welcome, Jessica. I'm now officially calling the meeting to order, because we now have a quorum at 7:35, 7:36. We're in business. All right, so I have here, and I have several questions besides your application. So you can
Yes.
direct me to anywhere where I've missed. I've blocked out applicant details and sponsor details. I don't think, there's nobody else online, but I didn't think it was relevant to share further than that.
Okay.
So I've tried to look at a map, I've actually seen that before, because I didn't drive down Cayuga Avenue. But all I could see on the map at home before I got here, it seems there's one big building on the block.
Where it's a very short dead-end street. We run just off of 246th Street, right next to Horace Mann off of Post Road, if you could sort of picture that. There are three or four single-family homes, and at the end of the block is our cooperative, which consists of two buildings.
Okay, so that leads me to my first question, is if you close off that street, what is the impact it have on parking for anyone, driveways, and non-participating neighbors?
So what's traditionally happened, first of all, there are no driveways per se. There's only the street where we have on-street parking. What we typically do is we ask our neighbors in a few days in advance, hey, if you could move your cars, that would be great. Almost everybody does, and the effect is pretty minimal. The far end of Cayuga Avenue, where it abuts a city-owned garden, is actually a no parking, no standing zone. So I would estimate probably 10 cars will have to move. Again, most people do that voluntarily, so there won't be any impact.
Okay, thank you. That leads to well, actually, let you make your presentation first.
Well, it's relatively
the
simple. We're a pretty small cooperative here at the end of Cayuga Avenue, and every June we like to get together and, have a little barbecue and just get together, be outside and sort of celebrate the start of summer. We get the kids out with the hoses and water balloons, and it's really one of the highlights of our season as a cooperative. What we're simply asking for is your approval to continue this tradition. It's of real no impact to our neighbors. In fact, we typically invite the neighbors. With the FDNY approval, we tend to open the fire plug and the kids get to splash. It really is just as simple as that. If there's music, it's on a small little Bluetooth speaker. There's one gas grill owned by the co-op that we all share and grill hamburgers. Everybody brings the dish to pass, and that's pretty much it. So that's really what we're hoping to do, is just keep that tradition going.
All right. You say this has been going on for 20 years. Someone gave me the impression that for the last couple of years you haven't had it.
We've had it, yes. I've just this year taken on the voluntary role of sort of managing it. So that's why I've come to you this year as just to get the community board's approval so we can, again, sort of continue our annual tradition. At its peak, the block party consists of about 20, 25 people, adults and kids. And that's really the extent of it. We bring out a few lawn chairs and enjoy our company and kind of be neighbors together, which is not something that happens enough around here, if I'm honest.
Okay, I had a couple of questions. Let's
Mhm.
see. Open flame, the barbecue of some kind?
Yes, we have a gas grill that we use. Yes,
And the gas is the liquid fuel is the tank.
that's correct. Yeah, it's the propane tank.
Okay, there was a question I didn't copy well, so I redid it, and so I didn't catch everything I should have. There's a
Mhm.
question here about the number of participants.
Again,
get the
traditionally,
answer.
I'd say at its peak, we'd say 30, maybe 35 people if the weather's nice. But it's a pretty small affair. It's at the end of the street where there really isn't any impact on through traffic or kind of folks in the neighborhood trying to get by. If you get a minute and you're on Google Earth, you'll see Cayuga Avenue really is this tiny little dead end block that not a lot of folks even know about. It's really kind of a hidden gem here in Riverdale, but that's it. That's really the full extent of it.
As I say, I looked at the map, so I have some sense.
Good.
Number 14, I couldn't quite figure out the answer when I didn't copy.
No, there will be no heavy equipment will be needed.
Okay, what else do I have? Alcohol will be sold or given out or bring their own?
No, there will be, yes, people will have cans of beer probably, but there is certainly nothing sold. It's a potluck is really how I would describe it. So people can bring salads and dishes to pass if they want to bring, seltzers, whatever people want to drink. That's typically how we do it.
I didn't blank this out. All right, well, then I'll cover it over, so I have to blank it out. I have no further questions. Anyone else?
Okay.
Just a simple one. Is everything very portable in case a vehicle needs to go up or down the street that, within 60 seconds you can pull things out of the middle?
Absolutely. That's a good question. So most of
Okay.
the chairs are simple folding chairs that all hands on deck, we could get it out of there. I bet I could get it under 30 seconds.
Okay. And, well, I imagine you have tables as well, right?
There's two folding tables. They typically kind of
Okay.
go off to the side. So if an
Okay.
emergency vehicle did need to get up the block, I'm sure they would have no problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Rosemary?
Well, I was, just to go on top of that question, there's an absolute requirement that 15 feet in the middle of the street, there be nothing in that 15 feet. That's just one of the requirements of SAPO. Because if
Okay.
an emergency vehicle comes, they don't want to go to somebody and say, can you move the tables?
Right. Okay. So 15 feet clearance in the middle of the street.
Once again, that's not the community board asking that. That's one of
No,
the
that's- yeah.
requirements of SAPO, okay? 15 feet,
Understood.
yeah.
Thank you for telling me.
Okay, and then there, just for the driveways, there were no driveways, into garages for the, oh, okay,
That's
good.
correct, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any else? Questions? I just have one last question,
Mhm.
and then we'll take a vote. The last time I did a SAPO, which we approved, apparently the applicant didn't know what step 2 was, and the event never took place. I feel kind of upset by that. You have
Step
track
2 being the
record, so I'm
event?
assuming you know what step 2 is.
What's step
Did I don't know that. I haven't done it, so I don't
Oh,
know.
okay.
You know what you have to do next?
I
you or don't
do
you?
not. I do not, no. I'd be happy to know.
I'll discuss it with Farah.
Okay, so please call the office. The office will advise you of the next steps.
Okay.
I'm making an assumption right now, because I haven't seen the vote, but on the assumption that we're going to vote yes, I want to make sure you have your event.
Right.
SIPO is street application or the office, so it must go to that office, and Artie will find that for you.
Well, the young lady asked, and I suggested contact the board office, and I was disturbed the following month to find out it hadn't taken place, because she didn't know what to do.
Okay.
Anyway, is there anyone objecting So this passes unanimously. I wish you well, and I hope you have great weather.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
This needs a board vote, too.
Oh, sorry, tomorrow night at the board, I will make the recommendation that the board approve it.
Thank you so much. Could I ask very quickly that you scroll up in the document? I think I noticed a small error in the timing of our event. I appreciate it. Just a little further, please. And a little bit more. Thank you. Right there, I see the event starts at about 3 p.m. It says event ends at 4:30. I think that's probably not accurate. I would say it ends closer to 8 o'clock, just to be clear. I don't know if that's something that needs to be rectified before the vote. Well, that's the breakdown. So the super and I and some volunteers will start to clear out the street, but folks are pretty much done. It just says event end at 4:30. I don't want there to be any confusion about that.
So the confusion I created, because the application is correct.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you for your time then.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you for being here, and again, I hope you have great weather and a good event.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening.
I'm now, well, let's do the business first, 3 things, and then we'll get on to our guest speaker. Where am I going? Okay. So the first item is welcome to us. We're all here. Steve is absent, and we have Chuck and Sylvia on EC, which is interesting because the resolution will be coming up, ending this possibility very shortly. Next item on the agenda is approval of 2 sets of minutes because we didn't have a quorum last month. So on the minutes of May, what happened here?
March 4th and April 8th. Correct.
Did I mess up here? Oh, I know, that is correct. Okay, there's March 4th. Any comments on March 4th? It's all here, if you want to go slow. Okay, that's March 4th. A motion to approve March 4th?
Yes.
Any objecting?
No.
Okay. Now, on April 8th, there was one error here, and I believe it was David who pointed out.
Betty Campbell's correct name.
I corrected the name.
Yep.
I have no idea where I got the other name from.
Grace Campbell?
Grace Campbell that I wrote?
Lorraine, I think.
It says
Grace.
Grace again.
Did you say Grace? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, whatever.
And I corrected it.
Rosemary, there's a key on that panel.
It's technology.
But the key is,
I don't do technology.
okay.
All right, so with that correction, anyone to make a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Any objections? Okay, so minutes, both minutes have been approved. Now, I will skip at the moment my report and run down to, activity, we did that.
Our guest.
To our guest speaker. Here's the letter I wrote to him, and I identified two areas I thought he might want to talk about. What Alex, in arriving, has said he'll give us a little more stuff. Then I'll go to these, and then we'll discuss anything else the committee wants to discuss. And I'm not going to hold him to a time limit, unless it's tomorrow morning and I'm done.
Yeah, my kids might hold me to a time limit,
Yeah.
but that's okay. All right,
Alex, thank you for coming again.
oh, yes.
We appreciate your being here, and we appreciate you being here. So, with that,
Sorry.
No problem. Okay, so first of all, friends, thanks for your patience. I'm sorry I messed up the date before. I showed up one night here. I was at the wrong committee meeting. But thanks for giving me just a few minutes here to spend with you, or as long as it takes. So, Community Board 8 has probably had the most experience with me of any community board in the city, so extra gold stars for you all, yay!
Keep going forward.
Yes, thank you. So you all know the basics of this. Because of the special questions that came in Marty's email, maybe I'll do a kind of a level 201 sort of examination of the sort of basic tenets of the law, but extend that into a couple of like less obvious places, and then of course I'll answer whatever questions we have tonight. But I'll keep my remarks short. So we all know that what Chapter 68, the Conflict of Interest Law, has to say for community board members has a lot to do with when a community board member can vote and when they cannot vote. And one way of thinking about that is if there's a direct gain or mitigation of loss to my own financial interests or the financial interests of an associated party, like a close relative or a landlord or a creditor or a business partner, tenant, things like that, then I'm precluded from voting, and then we use the legendary 3Ds. I disclose, I discuss, I don't vote. But there are other kinds of relationships that one could have with an entity that are non-financial, but still generate certain obligations to another party under law or ethical obligations or both. And therefore, I would also be precluded from voting when that associated party comes up, because I'm still associated with them even if we're not in a financial relationship. Now, sometimes that trust relationship under the law is financial. Let's say I'm somebody's lawyer, right? They're paying me for legal services, but it also doesn't have to be financial. If I'm providing legal services to a person right now for free, I am associated with that client, and therefore I would not be able to vote on any issue that client brings before the community board, not just the issue that I'm dealing with. Like, let's say I'm dealing with their will pro bono, or I'm doing an immigration case for this person pro bono. If that person also has some zoning issue come before the community board, I can't vote on that zoning issue. I got to use the 3Ds because I am their pro bono lawyer on this other thing, right? So I have obligations to that person irrespective of whether they're paying me. The one that we all know is the not-for-profit, right? Almost always, if you sit on the board of a not-for-profit, you're not paid for that service. You might be reimbursed for expenses, but there's almost no boards that pay their board members. Very frowned upon practice. But even though you're not being paid to be a board member for the not-for-profit, you have obligations to that not-for-profit under state law, duty of loyalty, duty of care, duty of something else I always forget. But those are regulated under state law by the Charities Bureau, the AG's office, right? So there's those are two areas where even though I'm not being paid by this party, I am associated with them, and therefore if any issue concerning that person, the pro bono client or the not-for-profit where I sit on their board, I'm going to disclose, then I'm free to discuss, and then I do not vote on that party's issues. Okay, now, could there be other kinds of relationships, like being somebody's lawyer, that tie me to this person even though they're not paying me? Probably. Think of other maybe professional kinds of obligations. Like, let's say I'm being retained by some firm as their accountant. I think probably, well, they're probably paying me anyway, but even if I'm their pro bono accountant, I think probably, now, I don't know accountancy as well as I know law, so I can't tell you for sure, but what I will say is a flag should go up. Like, if I'm the person who's responsible, like I'm signing off, like I'm pro bono doing some major piece of like engineering sign off on somebody's plans or whatever, I got to think I'm probably generating some professional obligations to those people. So if, you know, that person is a current client, even pro bono coming before the board, I think I got to talk to, if I want to vote on their issue, please talk to the COIB for legal advice, because what we need to figure out is like, okay, we know lawyer, do the legal advice people know engineer that well? Maybe they do better than me, right? But I'm just saying, like, with these kind of deep relationships. Now, I just gave you a lot. Let me contrast a couple of things that we get bogged down in every once in a while when we think about obligations to people. I think if I'm someone's accountant right now, I'm doing their taxes, I think I got an association with them. Let's say I did their taxes 10 years ago, I never did them again. That's not an association, right? That's done. Let's say I am the accountant who does that person's taxes every year, and I've done so for 20 years. I think the conservative answer is that I am associated with that person because we kind of got an ongoing relationship. Now, if you want to push back in the legal advice context, you're like, well, yeah, I mean, they do come to me every year, but like I spend 2 minutes on it and it's done because it's whatever, actor's taxes or something, blah, blah. Actually, actor tax is not that easy, by the way. But in any case, you could push back. But I think the conservative answer is if I'm providing them professional services on a regular basis, don't get caught up on like, oh, I'm just not doing it this week. I think that we should have a sort of more global understanding of the relationship I have with this person on and off, year in, year out. So that's number one. Number two is, and I think I bring this up at the general meeting, but because of all the fireworks going on with these community boards these days, I don't know if it's Community Board 8, but in Manhattan there's certainly been a lot of fireworks lately. We need to just spend a moment to refresh our memories about the difference between two things. One, I'm going to use this example. I did ride a bike here tonight. I take no opinion on bike lanes, right? I'm just using this because it's the one that comes off the top of my head. I do take an opinion on bike lanes. It's not a professional one. I got a personal one. But here's the deal, right? So let's say you've got. Remember that you can't vote on something when there's going to be a direct benefit to the party that you're associated to. Now, here's two questions. First of all, let's say I'm clearly associated with Transportation Alternatives. Why? Because I sit on their board or I'm employed by them, right? I am their employee. TA. Now, I'm not talking about anything else. I'm employed by them. They expect me to show up to work every day or 5 days a week, or I'm sitting on their board. That's clearly associated. Transportation Alternatives digs bike lanes. That's not a surprise to anybody. But when they advocate for bike lanes and you vote for bike lanes, they don't get any more money from that vote, right? They just like it. That's not enough to demand to preclude a community board member who was employed by Transportation Alternatives from voting, because there's no direct benefit or mitigation of loss going to Transportation Alternatives. It's just something they like. They want more of them, but they're not getting any dough from it, and they're not losing any dough from it. So that's number one. Number two is, let's say there was a vote where I don't know why you're doing this, but you want the city to throw more money at Transportation Alternatives. So you're making a recommendation like, hey, Adonis Rodriguez, Transportation Department, throw more money at Transportation Alternatives. Okay, but your role at Transportation Alternatives is not as an employee. It's not as a board member. You are a dues-paying member of one of thousands of people who pay dues to TA probably so you can do the 5-borough bike tour, right? That's why most of us do it. Not that I'm a member anymore, but I was when I did the 5-borough bike tour, right? So, in any case, being a member, a dues-paying member of an organization, does not generate an association with the organization. So even if you were voting on something that directly benefited TA, if your only link to TA was the fact that you're a dues-paying member, you're not on the board, you're not an employee, so you don't have to use the disclose, discuss, don't vote, right? So association is a threshold that needs to be met, right? It's not just I like them. It's not just I pay dues. It's got to be something bigger than that that generates obligations to them, like I'm employed by them or I'm on their board or I'm their lawyer, right? That would generate obligations. And also, it's the direct benefit or mitigation of loss that triggers it, not the alignment of interest that hits it, right? So if my not-for-profit loves reading for kids and you're going to vote for an after-school reading program for kids, but my not-for-profit's not getting the money, again, my not-for-profit thinks that's a great idea, but I don't have to preclude myself from voting because the money's not going to me. It's just going to the kids in some other way that we think is good, right? Okay, so now that we've done that, let me back up to one other issue that sort of hides below the surface on what I think, if you've spoken about this thing for as long as I have, seems pretty clear, but here's one that it like falls right below the surface that is not clear. I want to go back to the not-for-profit idea. We know that I'm precluded from voting if I'm on the board of a not-for-profit and there's a vote that's going to directly benefit the not-for-profit. Hey, from this not-for-profit, for example. We also know that if I'm an employee of the not-for-profit, then I have to, and the vote is going to say, hey, from this not-for-profit, then I got to disclose, discuss, don't vote, because that money's coming to a place that employs me, that money is kind of going into my pocket. Here's the one that falls under the surface. And the analogy turns back more to the attorney-client relationship in a way. Let me try to keep all these things, balls in the air without getting too confusing. Remember how I said, if I'm a lawyer and I've got a client and I'm on the community board, it doesn't matter what the community board member brings to the community board, I have to disclose, discuss, don't vote because of this outside relationship, this attorney-client relationship I've got with them. Let's analogize that halo effect of where you've got to preclude yourself from voting, because it's not about the issue, it's about your relationship with that person, and put it on top of this. Let's say I'm working at a not-for-profit. That not-for-profit has a funder that funds 10% or more of the not-for-profit's operating budget. So it's a big outsized player in my not-for-profit's operating budget. That means that me, the employee, and this isn't true if you're a board member because you're not getting paid, but if you're an employee of that not-for-profit, that means that when that funder, that big funder of 10% or over, has anything that comes before this community board member, you treat it like an employer. That means you got to disclose, discuss, don't vote. So even though the funder is not your employer and they're not your client, right? This is another area where you've got to preclude from voting, disclose, discuss, don't vote, because this funder plays such an outsized role in financing your employer that it's treated essentially as if you're associated with that individual for the purpose of determining whether or not you can vote. Okay. That is the sort of the level 201 way of thinking about the regular old issues, which are disclose, discuss, don't vote when some benefit comes or mitigation of loss comes to you or an associated party. But these are the questions that come up. Now, I want to shift gears. First of all, I've talked for a lot. And my voice therapist says I need to not talk so much. So does anybody have any questions? Yes, go ahead.
So you talked about lawyers and accountants, even if the issue is not directly related to the representation or the auditor doing okay. What effect does the firm of that accountant and lawyer, can that drag the individual into staying away from something? Do you understand?
I think I understand the question.
If the firm that you work for represents this person, does that drag you in as a community board member also?
Okay, so now let's split it two ways. Let's say I'm a junior associate at the firm, and this is a client of the firm, but this person is not my client.
That's correct.
Right? I think that is going to be treated more lightly than being a partner at that firm, because basically all the money that goes in kind of rolls to the partners, then we figure out what the associates get. I mean, more or less, right? So I think the answer, but where I would want that junior associate to be careful is if they are in any way roped into any work that serves that particular client, even if it's not germane to the issue, I would say that probably sets off the alarm. So I'm the junior associate. There's some big tax matter that this client has, but now I've been pulled in to do some legal work on that tax matter, maybe not even major work on discovery, well, I don't know, whatever it is. I think probably that should set off the alarm bells. Now, at a certain point, just to parse this through, you could say like, well, I was called into a meeting one time and they asked me a fact question, and then I left, and that's probably not working for the client. But there is some threshold there where you got a relationship with that client. So I think the closer you feel like you're getting there, the more you should probably call it for legal advice and say, hey, is that close enough? I think what's clearer is that if your firm has a client, and that client has any matter that comes before the board, then it doesn't matter whether you've done any legal work for them or not. You've got to use the disclose, discuss, don't vote.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I started my career at Pricewaterhouse, although I wasn't an accountant. I was in the consulting practice, but one of the key rules that the accountants try to impress upon us was the appearance of impropriety, which I think is actually quite a good standard. And many times the things that you point out that the conflict of interest boards, opine on, it's like, yeah, that was obvious. What is wrong with that person? But anyway, a specific question. Since you and I are both cyclists, something that could have been relevant, as you may know, that with all the city bikes around the city, I think it's, $200 a year or whatever. But if you are a resident of NYCHA, you get $5 a month.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's a significant discount, 50 or 75%, I have no idea. So let's assume I am a NYCHA resident, and it comes before us, that question comes up to press the city to implement it, which they did in fact do. But if it were to come before us, I would have gotten that advantage.
Okay, got it. So, the board has, to my knowledge, in no way officially opined on the specific facts that you have enumerated, but there is an old sort of public advisory that I would analogize with, and it has to, and the reasoning underneath it, which I think still holds well, because I've had sort of informal discussions with legal advice people recently about this, is the idea of thinking about where a benefit is sort of broadly diffuse and available to a broad class of people versus a benefit to a person that's an individual dispensation like a zoning variance. And so the very public and specific set of facts that this arises from is an advisory opinion in the Bloomberg years where, I don't know how many thousands of properties they were going to change the zoning in Queens, but some people who owned like a single condo in a big building wanted to know, like, hey, this is coming before my community board, it might change the value of my apartment. And the board said, no. That is true, but it's also true that you're voting on a policy that's really it's not directed to you, it's directed to this broad class, right? And therefore not precluded from voting on it. So without making a ruling on these facts, I suspect that if someone were to put that before the legal, the attorney of the day, they would analyze the facts, of course, but I think the analogy would hold is that that's the benefit not directed to that individual.
I think that's a reasonable interpretation.
Thank you. Back there, my friend. Oh, sorry, I have a lazy eye, so yes. I've got a calorie deficit too, so yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I guess my question is regarding, you mentioned a lot of professional ties, but no family relationships. At what point, right, like, oh, it's not my company, but it's like my son or my daughter or someone, like, or wife or husband, like spouse, like, at what point is that?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I'm like going on all the special stuff, and I got to do the sort of the undergirding structure of it. So the biggest things are those ones. That's actually where you see the most questions and sometimes the violations is these very obvious relationships, right? So what the law says is I can't make a decision like vote on a matter. Although I can participate in the discussion, right? That's how you guys are different, right? You disclose and then you can discuss. But I can't vote on the matter when the benefit's going to come to me or the associated party. So now the answer to your question. I am associated with a relative if they are my close relative. So that's parent, child, sibling, spouse, parent, child, sibling, spouse, unemancipated child, parent, sibling, spouse,
Domestic partner?
registered domestic partner. That's the other one.
What if they're not registered?
And not grandparent?
You're not associated with your grandparent. But here's where it gets complicated. Here's where it gets complicated. Okay. I'll give you two things. One is so relative is very narrowly drawn, right? Because we can think of cousins that we know or whatever. Like my wife has this huge family in New York. We're married 7 years. I'm always meeting a new cousin, but in any case, right? But but they cut it off really close. So it's no cousins are on there. Uncles are not on there. Grandparents not on there, right? But what is on there, we need to think of broadly, is anyone with whom I have a financial relationship. So if I live with my grandparents, then you're associated with them not because they're your grandparents, but because they're your roommate. You're under the same roof with them. And so sometimes we have seen a place, and I'll tell you where it could happen. Son-in-law is not covered under this thing. It's not listed. But what is listed is daughter. Now, why did I bring those two things up? Because there was an enforcement case a number of years ago where there was a kind of a fairly high-level gentleman in the fire department, like a supervisor, I think of electricians, so kind of a big job, like for the borough, I think, for a whole borough. And one day, transferred into his department was his son-in-law. And he proceeded to supervise his son-in-law for a couple of years and even presided over a promotion where the son-in-law got more money. The way that you get at that is that the father-in-law misused his position to benefit the daughter, right? Because all the actions there supervising the son-in-law directly benefit the person with whom she is married, right? So we should shouldn't just say cousin like, oh, that could never be under the conflict of interest law. Because if it's a cousin who owes you $10,000, then you can't vote on their issue, right? Or a cousin you'll live with, for example, then you can't vote on the issue. But generally relative. Now, your second question, ma'am, was friends? Was that right?
I mean, just any family close relationship, right?
Okay, so close relationships. Now, here's where the appearance of impropriety thing is sort of interesting. And there are tensions here. I think, and having never served on a community board, but I've been around these meetings a lot, I think that there is probably an interest in the board members voting every time that they can, right? Because we want the community to feel like, everybody participated and we had the voices of everybody, right? And you need a majority, 50% plus one of the yes votes to pass the thing. So I don't want people pulling themselves out based on a feeling necessarily, or at all. But we come to this issue of friend. When the Conflict of Interest Law was written, by the Charter Revision Commission back in like 86 to 88, then it comes into play in like 89, 90. What had preceded it was a board of ethics that opined a lot and had no enforcement power. Like, we think that's bad. We think that's bad. Maybe you shouldn't do that, right? And so there was some sense of like, well, maybe we don't want to do that anymore. So what they said was, you know what, we're going to have a very bright line code, cousins outside of it, unless they're financially associated, right? But we can define what relative is for us. It's these close relatives, right? We're going to define it, super close. And then if you got a violation, it's because it's you or an associated party, boom, we're having an enforcement case, right? Off to the races. What they couldn't figure out or didn't want to figure out is how do you legally define friend? It's really tough, right? Because sometimes, I don't know your particular work situation, but you ever been at work where somebody comes around your office a lot because they were sure you were friends and you weren't that sure, right? So that's all I'm saying. It's like, how do you figure that out? Like, well, if you went to dinner 10 times last year. Well, it was the pandemic last year. Nobody went to dinner. Are we still friends? I don't even, what? It's impossible, right? So they didn't do it. And what that means is the conflict of interest law, if some friend who you're not financially associated with, doesn't owe you a lot of money, isn't your business partner, isn't your client, whatever, comes before the community board on some zoning issue, if you're not personally benefiting from the vote, you absolutely are allowed to vote on it. Doesn't matter if you've known them for 50 years. If there's no association with the friend, like a financial association, or they're a close relative, then you can vote on their issue.
And you use that as an excuse not to vote? I really don't want to vote on this knucklehead.
Well, don't say it too loud, because then you might hurt that friend's feelings, right?
I realize that.
I mean, this may be why people, and this is outside the aegis of the conflict of interest law, but I'm speculating that perhaps this is why people use that function abstention, right? But remember, abstention still counts in the vote tally. It's different than pulling yourself out from the vote because you're not qualified. So you can't say, I'm disqualified from voting because that dude's my friend, but could one abstain? One could abstain for no reason, so they could certainly abstain because that dude's your friend. Yeah.
Let me build on that,
Yeah.
because I did abstain several years back. I don't remember if I used full cause. Friend of mine, now deceased, friend of mine had a piece of property overlooking the Hudson. He wanted to build on there. It was a zoning question. Came before the board. Being my friend and being my cardiologist certainly played into it. But the third thing that played into it is he has a business. And I'm on the board, was on the board of his business.
I think that probably pulled you into the association side of things, so it's probably good that you didn't vote on the thing. Now, the only question is, and I'm not going to go back in armchair quarterback thing, is like abstention, we would have thought like how many yes votes we need to pass versus like if you were precluded from voting, then we would have took the number of eligible votes down in the room, but let's not worry about that now. But, yeah, so, I mean, do people abstain maybe because of these friendships, because they're like, look, everybody, I just feel like it's weird because this person, like, whatever, maybe. But that's beyond the realm of Chapter 68.
Well, you've already given us the middle, but I want to go cluster, and that is later on the agenda, as we do every month, I go over all of the dispositions.
Yeah, the dispositions, yep.
And that's when we say, how the hell could that idiot have done something so stupid?
Oh, we should be, some of these public servants, they legitimately mess up and they go on to have wonderful careers. They never violate again. We've almost never had recidivist violators. A couple. Bernie Carrick being the big one, but, who went on to do, all kinds of other things. But
Multi-state offender.
yeah, exactly. It's like Santa's bag. You can pull a lot of things out of that. But in any case, it is true. Sometimes, you read those, like, how could that have happened? But then sometimes you're like, well, I don't know. Sometimes you can't read all the facts were from the disposition, Anyway.
But in the list I'm bringing up today, I can't figure out, you have one where a warden, captain, and the subordinate took shoes, paid for shoes, and whatever, and got fined.
Yeah.
And then 2 months later, he shows up, the same captain, same former captain. So I couldn't understand why there was in there.
Well, it does happen, and it was probably above my pay grade to figure out, like, look, someone who, it's true, there's a certain kind of person who violates the law who probably has a little bit of tolerance for risk, right? And so you get hit once, maybe you feel like, well, lightning probably won't strike again. I have no idea how to explain the mind of the recidivist, and it's happened a couple of times where we've had that. The case that you're talking about was, I think, a prohibited financial relationship between ADW, Assistant Deputy Warden, and a lower ranking corrections officer, I think, selling sneakers, which is a thing people do. I think Donald Trump is selling some right now, right? Anyway, okay. So, the other thing Marty wanted me to bring up, which I can probably do very quickly because the way he brought it up is like it's a very current events thing, is like what's going on with these teachers taking positions related to the conflict in the Middle East, and then the being called out on that, and then have people taking very strong opinions on it. The Conflict of Interest Board does not have any thing to say about what positions teachers might, or any public employee, because I think teacher is a little bit of a red herring here, what any public employee might espouse. The only thing to maybe talk about for us here is that I think it's pretty clear for a regular old city employee that for most of us, our job is not to have an opinion on what's going on with the conflict. And it's fine for us to have that opinion after hours with our own social media, go to our whatever rally we want to. We just don't do it with city time, and we don't do it with city resources. That's it. That's basically it. And so using a city website or a city copy or a city phone or a city meeting or whatever to advocate for these things when there's no legitimate city function, and I'm thinking of a person like me, it's pretty easy to say, like, when people are, like, not doing their city stuff. Now, I think what's probably more interesting and less of a complex issue when we talk about the teachers is, like, I'm a social studies teacher. I'm supposed to teach kids about the Middle East. How am I supposed to avoid this thing? And then I've got a little bit of academic freedom because I have, I'm a person who's maybe published on this issue or whatever, and so, and
That's why they give a tenure.
and I'm encouraging debate in the classes, and so I think it's a very nuanced issue that thank goodness, I think the Conflict of Interest Board doesn't have any authority to get involved in, and I think for the people who do have the authority to get involved in, it's very messy, and that's been true all across the country to try to figure out what is it that a teacher can and can't say, right, is a very thorny issue, and sometimes it's not even clear what they can and can't say on their own social media, right? And again, these are issues that really are, I'm speaking out of my wheelhouse, so I'll stop now and just say that the small part of this is I don't use city time and resources to make flyers for rallies. I don't use city communication systems to set up my meetings for whoever I'm supporting or whatever. This can veer into political activity, but most of these things that we're talking about are not political activity. They're issue specific, right? These aren't rallies to elect candidates. These aren't resources to elect candidates. They are rallies to promote a cause or against something that's happening. And you just don't do it on city time. You don't do it with city resources. An interesting question could be, because this is a very public-facing agency that serves a community, if this community board wanted to undertake a resolution that had something to say about that issue. I don't think the conflict of interest law precludes a community board from having that. I don't know if some other, some other voice legally in city government has something to say about that, but I don't think the conflict of interest law does. I think what's more concerning is me, the city employee, saying, like, okay, I'm putting a rally together and now I use city resources to try to promote my rally and stuff. And it's a less interesting question, but it's actually the one that we have the authority to answer. Thank goodness, because I think the tensions are high right now, and social media has only made that worse. Scott Galloway, who people can feel different ways about, The Economist, he's a little controversial, but he said, it used to be that, like, he used to do a lot of marketing, and he said that we used to think that it was like sort of salaciousness that sold in terms of marketing. Sure, but you know what sells better? Rage. Rage does, right? And that's kind of where we are with all this social media. So, but again, I'm speaking out of my wheelhouse. So our conflicts part is very small, not city time, not with city resources. And with that, I think I've addressed those two things that we wanted to talk about. And are there any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Just exactly this last point that, I'm sorry, if some, Chuck had his
Go
hand.
on.
Oh, yeah.
Chuck, Mr. Chair?
Come on.
Am I still here? Yeah.
Okay, we have two hands up, so,
Chuck?
there you go.
Yeah. Let me just make a point. You're going to see a decision probably within the next few weeks coming out of the federal court in New Hampshire, which is going to impact upon the issue as to the extent to which government can regulate teachers teaching or speaking out on issues that are pertinent to their subject matter and that are not So, for example, there is a Supreme Court case called Garcetti, which says teacher, and in that case it was an assistant DA, is barred from teaching, from doing anything involving public activity. However, you have seen on a motion to dismiss in the New Hampshire case, you are not allowed to regulate in any way the private activities, non-curriculum of teachers. So be careful and watch for that decision.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks very much. It's a super interesting area of inquiry right now, especially because it seems like everybody's got an opinion. Again, because of social media, everybody's got a chance to make their every opinion known. So, so thanks for that, and I am going to stay tuned for that opinion. Thank you.
So, just on the last point that you were raising, you know, it always interests me that, when you talk about community board members, but we talk about, staff members. The rules are very, very similar. They're I'm sure there are places where they're different, but it's very similar. Public servants, public officers, very simple. So I took this, page out of one of the wonderful things that gets sent around, and it just, conflicts of interest law contains provisions that apply to all public servants, okay? Including community board members. It's interesting, they had to put that in. And just this first paragraph, nobody can use community board resources, including community board email accounts for private, personal issues, none. Cannot use social media. We have Facebook, cannot use social media cannot use the computers in the city office. Any telephones that are given to them cannot be used for personal phone calls, am I right?
So,
And let me just, letterhead, vehicles, equipment, any supplies or personnel for anything other than city purposes.
okay.
Is that, okay,
Let me-
am I missing something?
You're not missing anything. So these plain language materials are meant to serve, if you've ever been involved in this, the one thing you want to do is you want to make it simple, and you want to make sure that if somebody makes an error, they make an error on the side of something that doesn't get them in a violation, right? So there's a tiny bit of nuance to that sentence that's been vetted a lot, and I love it, but which is this. What the law really cares about is using city time and city resources for a non-city activity that's related to financial activity, obligations to a pro bono client, for example, I think, or political activity, right? That's what the law cares about. So, for example, if I'm a community board staffer, could I use a city computer and log into my personal Gmail account and answer a message from my mom? Yes, that's called incidental acceptable personal use. That's a term that comes out of a policy that we developed with the law department and DOI a number of years ago, in the Bloomberg years, right? And it's had a little bit of nuance here and there, but basically it's meant to communicate to city employees that using a bit of city time or city telephone or city copier for a personal matter, like, oh, here's my kid's grade card, I'm going to photocopy one page to show grandma, whatever. These are personal, so they don't get in the way of people doing their job.
Incidental is an interesting term.
Incidental, yeah. Now, that is meant to allow management locally a wide berth to say, like, hey, you might be doing personal, but you're talking on the phone 8 hours a day, and I feel like that's an issue, right? That's still a discipline issue. It's just not our issue. The board doesn't want to step into how the individual agency manages micromanages the time of an employee. So that's an issue, just not our issue. Where the law says, no, that has to be our issue, is any amount of city computer time, email, resources, city social media. So I don't mean like logging into your Twitter on a city account, but using the CB Twitter account for a political campaign or for some like promotion of an outside business. That's what's zero tolerance.
That's helpful, thank
Yeah.
you.
So
But
you're.
that doesn't come across in that language. but-
Yeah, and so you're trying to make it 2 pages, and you don't want to like linger on the exception and make, right? Yeah,
Thank you.
that's the issue, yeah.
You know, again, I think that a lot of this is still, you know, a reasonable analysis. In other words, you know, if you answer a call, or you call a friend to say, are you gonna be at the rally at 5:30? That's incidental.
That's incidental.
But if you make 500 copies of flyers on the copy machine in the office, I mean, to me, that's pretty obvious.
I think the first flyer, not 500.
Well, it depends I think it probably also depends, I mean, you get into some very interesting issues from a legal perspective, and I don't wanna drag that into down to some kind of boneheaded compliance issue, but just imagine for yourself, let's say I had a small Etsy business, which I don't have any time to have any business because my kids are 7 and 4, right? But let's say I had some small Etsy business, and for some reason, the website wasn't good enough, so I needed brochures, right? So I've got a brochure of my Etsy business at work. I think if I make 1 copy of my brochure for my business, I think that's a violation of the conflict of interest law because I've used the copier to promote my outside business. What happens if somebody else takes the brochure off my desk and makes 1 copy? Because it's not their business, right? And,
For their use.
right, but for their use. Now, if I told them to do it, or I'm trying to find a workaround, I think that's a different issue. But, you know, so all I'm saying is, like, you could get into some places where you're like, well, all right, but I think the spirit of this is pretty easy, right? And what you said makes sense. Like, hey, you're going to be at the rally? Yes, see you there. Boom, we're going. But imagine if I was the guy, hey, you're going to be at the rally, and I was doing it 50 times or 100 times, that wouldn't be incidental anymore, right? Even though the length of each conversation was short, you know?
Agreed. Absolutely agree.
So, I think the takeaway, maybe just to bring this back, is that most of the stuff is fairly simple. Having said that, the reason why we're meeting with people one-on-one every day, all day, is to give you some security that you've had your facts analyzed, and also that there's a record generated, and that's really for your protection. Because the way the advice works is we can never confirm or deny that you called us. That makes us a safe place to talk. But there may be a moment where you're like, I know I can do this thing, and I want everyone to know that I asked the question, and so we'll always give you a copy of what we say. And also, every once in a while, there is something that is not as obvious as you think it is. And that's the other reason why maybe in 5 or 10 or 20 minutes of us thinking about it, we can figure out just a little bit of the extra stuff you want to be sensitive to, you know. So I would just encourage everybody, you know, I know this is the cream of the crop, right? This is the Ethics and Standards Committee, but the takeaway should be, if anything comes up on that 2-pager that feels a little weird or they just have an additional question, send them our way. And let's get this law straight for them on whatever their question is, you know.
Well, the tremendous benefit that you have, I know Marty knows this, you can always call COIB. They're always there, they always answer the phone, and you get an answer. Maybe not at the moment, but you get a call back within 24 hours and you'll get an answer. And it's a tremendous benefit.
I bring cards this time? Last time you did.
I still don't have any cards, but the number and the email addresses on that handout that was referred to, and I think Marty, I'll send another copy around. I think I sent it last month or something, but that just you know what? It's really easy. It's called the email. They've got a dedicated email box now. We've finally danced into the 2020, so it's AOD, Attorney of the Day, at coib.nyc.gov. And every day somebody's on that email box, and that'll be their case.
Actually pretty.
This has the phone number, not the email address.
Yeah. Okay, and people.
AOD, say it again, AOD.
AOD, like Attorney of Day.
No, I just want to reconfirm, at coib.nyc.gov.
You got it.
Thank you.
Yeah. And like I said, this community board has had, you're doing the right thing. You get extra gold stars from me for having me out so often, so thank you.
Asking again.
Oh, Chuck, yeah.
That's an old,
Mr. Merler, has he still got a question?
I don't think so.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not a problem at all. Oh, it's fine. Okay, Fred.
thank you.
We good?
Thanks.
All right, so anytime you want me back, you let me know. Huh?
I didn't see your bike up.
City bike.
Ah, okay.
Which, you know, for a city employee, I think they'll reimburse you the whole thing.
Have you ever seen Guarding Tess?
No.
The Shirley MacLaine, Nicolas Cage movie? You'll enjoy it.
Yeah?
It's got an interesting conflict of interest thing that relates very much to the Trumps and the Bidens.
Okay, Guarding Tess, I'll put it on my list. Thanks.
It's a bit of a tearjerker, but it's actually a good movie.
Okay, all right, good. Give me a relief from all these terrible sci-fi movies.
Thank you again.
Of course. Great to see you, and, friends, be well. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Have a great summer, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, good to see you again. All right, take care, everybody.
Way to move the table over. I know there's taping.
Yeah, it's a cable thing.
It's a pleasure. It's a total pleasure.
I'm gonna go to my chair's report.
Get some hot water or something if he coughs one more time with a scream.
Don't wait for
I gotta give him a call. And some honey.
Begin, we're
So let me start with this item, which I really want to talk about. And I sent you all the material on it.
Marty, I've got to leave you now. I've got to go.
Take care.
the coughing.
In 10 minutes.
The issue, again, I think I set all this in motion, so I have to apologize on the front end. The issue for me is not quite, I thought this was self-explanatory that I sent to you, but I was the originator of the Community Service Award for the board while I was chair of the board. And we established criteria, and it was a board award. It was given by the board. Over time, we now have 2, possibly 3 additional awards. And I had the impression over the last couple of years that I was a member of the audience, not a participant in the awardee being given out. So the question became, whose award is it? Is it a committee award or is it a board award? And if it's a board award, shouldn't the board have some touch to it, on it, before it becomes public or is public? And so I questioned the whole concept of most valuable merchant, and I questioned the comeback hit award. Both, I believe, do not have criteria written out. So much so that at the last executive board meeting, a whole week ago, David raised some very important questions about the most valuable merchant award. And such as, and they're in the letter, such as, is the merchant individual being honored, or is it the business that the merchant is associated with being honored? And if we honor the business, are we doing some kind of commercial on their behalf? The second aligned question is the merchant being honored because they're a good merchant, or is the merchant being honored because in addition to being a good merchant, they're also doing something for the community, sponsoring something, involved in something, volunteering for something? So it isn't just it's a good business. We like those cleaning store. It's because, I just came up cleaning store, but that's this person is a coach in a little league. This person does a whole bunch of other things, or any particular number of things. So the question is there a set of criteria for the selection of Merchant of the Year? And the answer is no. With respect to Comeback Kid, I don't know that there's any criteria other than whoever makes the recommendations says, this is a good kid who got better. I don't challenge that, but I think there ought to be some reason or scope. A age level, whatever, I don't know. So the question before us now is, A, if there is to be this and future awards devised by committees, shouldn't that require a vote of the community board to establish such award? And B, shouldn't those come with criteria for how they're to be given out? So those are the questions before us. I think I played games down here of suggested honors. I don't know if I sent that to you or I did it afterwards. But I believe they should define the purpose, they should define eligibility. It's not really important that the number. I know the Community Service Award, sometimes you gave 1, sometimes you gave 3. The number wasn't important, but should there be a number? The question that David also asked was whether or not self-nomination was good enough, or we needed a third party. As much as I agree with that, the question is, if I ask my wife to nominate me, or I ask one of my patrons to nominate me, it doesn't make a difference, it becomes a self-nomination.
Well, in spite of not having written down criteria, it was as each of, I think of the merchants, self-appointing yourself an award was right up front said, can never happen. You can never nominate yourself. Now, it was not written down, it wasn't approved, but I will tell you from day one with the Merchant Award, you could not nominate yourself. You could
David
not.
caught in the
You
nominating
could not.
letter, we, as opposed to he,
Right.
is we.
Right.
So it means it came from the person.
Right.
At this point, I don't know that we have any authority or desire to change what's in place. But I think I'm suggesting that for the future, that the committees that devise these awards come up with those things before the next cycle begins.
So I
It
thought,
should also be in the press release. Self-nominations aren't allowed, and
Let them come back with it, and we'll let their the committee responsible for, now,
correct.
in the case of, what do you call it, the Community Service Award, I believe that committee is selected and identified by the chair,
Mhm.
as opposed to the other two, which apparently came out of,
The committee
Committee,
themselves, correct.
but since we are rules and ethics, we can recommend to them that they not allow self-nomination.
okay?
And that, the, most valuable merchant, should not be the business, it should be the individuals. I mean, looking at last year, Lynch and his wife, and the Tree Army, I mean, they did very good work with their business of the Tree Army to the community, but they did it. And so recognizing, Noel and Jim Lynch, whatever their name was, for their service, I think was great as a most valuable merchant. And coincidentally, they own the Tree Army. But we shouldn't have, recognized the Tree Army.
Okay.
So, let's not, the past, okay, I have a hard time blaming the past.
Past is the past.
Yeah,
No, no, but I'm only using it as an example.
So, just when we think about the Merchant Award and the Youth Committee, it's the Economic Development, but you're quite right, the Community Service Award came from a different place, it was structured differently, and then a chair of the Economic Development Committee decided to do a Merchant Award, okay? Nobody said no, everyone would, okay, fine. When it came to the youth, it was the exact same thing. There was a chair of the Youth Committee who decided to have that award. It was self-created within that committee. And in both cases, but probably largely the inspiration of the chair of those committees, but the committees themselves. So the start of those awards are completely different than the community service. Okay. So this idea, or this suggestion, that these committees go back and rethink or think what should the criteria be for those awards makes all the sense in the world to do. Right? It just makes all the sense. Okay, so so go back and do that. It's not up to the Law, Rules, and Ethics Committee to tell them. I think, was this not decided at exec? Didn't you at exec say, I'm gonna ask them, or we're gonna ask them, or our
Right, but
expectation is that
But they still have to work on a criteria.
they have to work on
Yeah.
it and then bring it, I think you said, and bring it
And
to.
I think it should be, I sent you the spreadsheet, like a template, so that for future, because even the veterans wanted to do something. And when I didn't see a template or guidelines or
Nothing,
anything,
yeah.
I just felt that was wrong, that we should have something in place to give guidelines and criteria
Yes.
for all committees.
And if the committees want to do it, then
Yeah.
to charge
It
the
should-
committees with doing a full-blown,
Yeah.
right?
And
How are they going to do it? How are they going to advertise? What are the criteria they use to choose? No self-nominations? I mean, okay.
And I did
it's
a chart,
obvious.
Marty, do you have that
Okay.
chart by any chance? I sent a chart. It had all the committees and then a listing of suggested criteria so that it would be in place.
It would be hard for me to find it now.
Okay, so I'll re-email it.
I think, tomorrow night, I will indicate we had this conversation. As a committee, we all, unless someone feels differently, we all believe those three things should take place. One is it needs a resolution established by the board, it needs criteria, and, is there a third?
Should be-
deadline, right, or some kind of,
Well, that would be in the criteria.
okay.
One criteria, we want resolution, board resolution, and, and process, we need process. I mean, we had this silly convoluted thing, which is not what I asked for. Before the open meetings law, when, and it's also in that letter, when the committee came back with recommendations, it was openly discussed at an executive meeting, names were discussed, we didn't have a camera, we didn't have outsiders, and there was no issue. But now that we have cameras, we don't want to be around mentioning names. So, for example, when we hired, goes back to Kira, we hired Kira, we identified every applicant is either a number or a name, a number or a letter, so that when we discussed it in the committee, it was, A has good credentials, what do you think? We never had to tell the world we were talking about a person. The same thing was true, I believe, with, not the nominating committee, but the, we had the essays. Sylvia, when I was chair of the education committee and we had contests, we labeled them by number so that people spoke about an essay in terms of A's essay versus B's essay, not the kid from. So, when I suggested that be done, so what apparently happened is that even the committee didn't know who the people were. They worked with A, B's, and C's. The executive committee, when they shared it with us, because I suggested it go to the executive committee, no one knew who was who, we just had A's and B's. My intent was for us to say John Doe at so-and-so business. I could read that, but we talk about B, we wouldn't be talking about who it was for the sake of the, but right now, we passed a resolution based on A's and B's. Now, some people guessed who they were. I have no idea who they were, but we didn't talk about process. Okay, so I think I'm gonna recommend these items unless you have different suggestions, and I'll wait for you to contact me before I send these out. But I have to send it to you first, because I don't think I sent it out.
This is to the board chair. Am I not stating that correctly?
No, the board chair will do it, I just think we ought to share our thinking with her.
Yeah, I'll bring up I'll give you the list of what I emailed in that spreadsheet, because it had quite a few.
Okay, moving on, we have our guest speaker. Resolution to modify procedures. I have to make one correction, and Chuck is gone. I have to make one correction, which I made at last month's meeting. The letter that I sent out, well, let's come back to that for a second. Just the history. In December, we established the survey, which went out to committee chairs. They had until February to return them. I received responses only from 2 non-LRE members. I got responses from the LRE members, but it amazes me how excited they were to get involved in the discussion. I requested input from executive members at December, January, February, March, April, May meeting. I still have not gotten any more. I've requested input from board members in December, January, February, March, April. I still have not gotten any further input. At the March LRE meeting, vote to recommend end of EC. What I do wrong? The next line indicates what the correction is. The letter said that we sent out, where's the letter? I have the letter there.
Well,
Oh, we did have the letter. Missed it, I did have, okay.
all right, whatever.
The
I was missing
the
the-
letter from you
The
and
letter that's in
Steve?
March that Steve and I sent
Yeah.
out,
Mm-hmm.
that should be on that list. Laid out, the reasons, it asked for input, but the mistake on the letter was that I said it was unanimous decision, when in fact it was 5 in favor and 1 abstention. And Chuck did speak to me afterwards. I certainly know his feelings. I'm surprised he's abstaining, because with his wife as she is, he can't always make every meeting. But have not changed my opinion, and so we're all set. And just know item G on that, I sent to you also that the governor has already signed off on the renewal of the OML with 0 changes. So even though there were recommendations for changes, there weren't any. So what I did for our resolution, and I want to come to item 1C in a moment, with our resolution here, is I took out everything that referred to EC.
No, you just, did you send this to us in an email?
Yes.
Okay, can you print that out eventually? Can you print that out for me? Thank you.
Your cursor's in the middle of the text, Marty.
Thank you.
Actually, you're the one who put it there.
After whatever.
I mean, this is word for word what is in the text now. This was passed a year ago, I believe, or a year and a half ago. Didn't go into effect until it's past September. And I think it was the mayor who finally ended the use of Zoom for meetings. I had to go back to in person. So
What's the significance of 1C? I mean,
I'll come back to it in a moment.
okay.
But the text is exactly, I changed nothing in the text other than remove reference to EC. And as far as C is concerned, and I'm going to ask David and Rosemary to clarify for me. I don't remember if I caused C. I did look at the law, and I'll show you the law in a moment. It says nothing about audio recordings. The issue came up because there are at least two committees, that are not in any position
Right.
to make, telecommunications.
Mhm.
Economic, Committee,
Public safety.
and Public Safety, both cannot. So I don't know, I'm asking for your recollection, if I came up with audio recordings or not. Again, the law does not say audio recordings. And when we discussed it a year and a half ago or so, and went crazy over language, we definitely added the last two words, when feasible. The law loves the word, when practicable. So I use when feasible instead. So the question is whether or not we want to remove that entire concept. This is nothing in the law, and so I'm going to skip to, unless you're in the middle of reading.
Yeah,
Where'd you get the 5 days? That's,
It's in the
Wait.
law.
the 5 days is in the law
Yeah.
for audio?
No. There's nothing, here's the law, in red.
Okay,
That's the
so
law, and that's the,
where's the 5 days, any place? Where do I see 5 days?
That was in the making it public, right, when feasible. But can we, just reference it, so.
this is meetings, attendance, revision.
It was up there. Mm-hmm.
So the minutes were 10 days, so we're in, did the law say Zoom had to be available in 5 days?
Well, I'm not worried about 5 days at the moment.
And I'm not
Because the
fighting it,
question-
just where did it come from? That's,
I don't know, for a year it's been there.
oh, okay.
So the question is to remove the entire thing, since again, I'm gonna skip down here, the law, which I've outlined here, says nothing about audio at all.
it does.
Is or unabridged audio recordings. Okay, video recordings or unabridged audio recordings.
Okay. So, did it, I underlined it, I didn't read it well enough.
But it's saying that it could be meeting minutes, not that it has to happen.
Well, neither does C, in that doesn't say when feasible, do it when it's feasible. That doesn't say it has to either, so,
So the question is, leave it in or take it out?
check it out.
1C? Well, I got two questions. Audio recordings I'll set economic development aside for a moment and just public safety. The 5-0 precinct won't allow video cameras in the building. Will they allow audio recordings within the building?
And the answer is probably not.
Okay.
When
Okay,
feasible
so-
would take care of that.
Okay, so, right, my other question is, why does economic development not Zoom their meetings?
Because they don't have
They're
to.
local businesses.
They don't meet here, they meet in a business,
Oh,
they're not bringing in equipment.
I don't think that's a good enough reason. Either you bring the equipment with you, or you have the meeting here. I mean, it's nice to be out in the community and at those businesses, but that should be a criterion. The only reason for not doing it is inconvenience to the chair of the committee.
As an aside, I've mentioned before, tomorrow night's meeting has to have a resolution to extend the whole idea of telecommunications. I didn't see it come out yet, but the issue there in that resolution is always when available, when possible. We never committed ourselves to, you must.
Right.
And
Right.
even if you meet here, you don't have to have it. It's up to the
That's
discretion
true.
of the chair. It doesn't-
Well, that's true. That's true.
And I think by bringing in the audio, you're adding something that wasn't even there, and it just may create an hour's worth of dialogue that's unnecessary, because we have the audio when we put in the video.
Yeah, but if there's no video,
Yeah, but if there's no video, but that, again, that's up to discretion of the chair. Like, we could have had this meeting without video, if Marty so chose.
so, just one word for audio.
There's one word.
Years ago, in the old days,
Yeah, the recorders.
in the old days,
I don't think we're recording right now, are we?
Yes.
Well,
Don't get-
the red blinking
The blinking cloud. I mean.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Recording to the cloud.
This is something up in the top left corner. Thank you.
So in the old days, the only meetings that got recorded were
Board meetings.
the board meeting, exec, and, exec once open meetings law kicked in. Before that, it was, you couldn't even go through the
No,
door.
even before. we
Oh,
got
they,
the
but it
report.
wasn't public, but
No,
it wasn't public.
public.
There you go.
It was
Okay.
for transfer.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So the board meeting, exec, and I think land use.
Probably, because we
I
had a
think
lot of
land use.
stuff.
And Phil Friedman, we all remember Phil, well, most of us remember Phil Friedman, who was then treasurer. He's the reason we have the Xerox machine in there, that we were able to, I mean, all the new machinery that this office got was because of Phil. And he got these small, recorders, that if you put it here, it would pick up every voice. And I remember Diane Bay, she just like stuck a little cord, put it in her computer, and
tiny
she'd
little
all,
thing.
okay. And there are some, of course, I don't believe there are, all these recordings have been kept in this office, or they should be. All of them should be here. There's nothing wrong with doing a recording, so it gets put in a box, and if somebody wants to listen to it, okay. I see nothing, one of the problems now with all the Zoom, everything is open. Everybody knows every word that's said, and yet we have two meetings of important committees, and we don't know exactly what was said. We don't know the debates.
No.
Okay, so there's a debate on an issue and a resolution, we don't know that. Is there any, well, and maybe there is, but I don't see a problem with having that recorder there and just record it, and then you guys download it and we have it. If somebody asks, it's there. It's, okay, that's, going back in time. Thank you for helping me going back in time. You're right about exec. It wasn't public, but we had it for recording purposes.
Yeah, I could only speak on, I haven't been to a public, safety meeting, but I have been to an economic development meeting, and it's in a restaurant, right? So sometimes there's music, sometimes there's a lot of, other people talking, right, because everyone's having dinner. Like, if we move forward with, like, video, like, audio recording, I would suggest then, like, everyone would have a mic.
No.
But they would have to, because you won't get it. Yeah, just because, like, you literally just, the ambient space won't allow for it.
We're not gonna know until we test it.
Right, so it would have to be piloted, it have to be in the budget, right, like, because it.
We have these machines. We don't have to buy them. We have them already.
Oh, okay, so try the machines that exist, okay.
And,
They're little dictaphones.
and as pointed out, I'll tell you from experience, your phone can do exactly the same thing. On Monday, on behalf of my daughter, who writes a column for the Jewish Link, you go past some of the stores in Skyview, for example, you can pick up her paper. She asked us to go to an event in White Plains. My wife and I sat there with my iPad, actually my iPad and my phone. I taped it twice and then sent off to her the recording from which she wrote an article.
I think it's of value to the community to know what public safety and economic development discuss.
But not go to the level where everything has to be perfect,
Julie?
okay?
I would just go back to, a few things. Every meeting, you know what's going on for the minutes. In the past, public safety, economics, all committees, we never had recordings
That's
of it.
correct.
We had the minutes. The audio deals with hybrid, like this doesn't pertain to if we're gonna have a meeting with Zoom. This pertains to if we're gonna have a hybrid. So if the chair decides not to have a hybrid meeting, you're not gonna have a video or an audio. You're gonna have the audio and the video regardless. I just think adding the audio, then you'll have to put into the budget that you're going to either have to get the chairs their own phones or recordings, because that's an added, step for them. They're gonna have to come to the office to get a recording, to go through their meeting, but they still have to come here. You're working, you don't, to me, that's just,
But I have an hour's,
They could come here and have the meeting.
I have an hour's worth.
you wanna be in the communities. You don't wanna come here. You wanna go out into the communities.
I have an
I shared
hour's worth.
economic years ago, like 15 years ago. We went to different restaurants.
I understand.
I have an hour's worth of program on here, if you'd like to hear it.
But you don't wanna use your own personal phone, because then if you, even the borough president tells the people when they got sworn in, do not use your phone, do not use your email, because it could be taken if they need to investigate something. I would never ask a chair to use their phone with the chance that their phone could be taken away from them if something comes up. We would have to buy them their own phones. I think it would be unfair for them.
But we have a tape recorder.
That's not true.
We have to buy them their own
That's not
tape
true.
recorder that they
That's
can.
not true, because, if you make a recording, you can get the recording to the office and then delete it.
No, but if there's an investigation, they would still want to see your phone, just like
Not if
they
it's
want to see
deleted.
your email.
Not if it's deleted.
But they will have to check to see if
You're
it
in
was
big
deleted.
trouble if you delete it.
Right? You have to check
You are
if it was
in-
deleted.
If by well, no, wait a minute, no, you would not be in trouble.
Yes, you would.
That's like,
Rosemary,
that's.
let me finish the sentence before you tell me that I'm wrong. You would not be in trouble for deleting something that you gave to the office. If you gave the recording to the office to have them upload it, and then you delete it, there's nothing wrong with that.
There's a lot wrong with that. Audio to me wasn't in the law, it wasn't in the original resolution. I would say take it out. It's too much of a headache.
But it's right here, unabridged audio recording.
Right, or, we have video recordings. Our
Or.
video recordings have audio.
But we don't have two committees.
We have more than two. Any chair can say, I don't want to do hybrid this month. Then you'll have more than two.
And you don't have to do audio. It's permissive. It's not mandatory.
You don't have to do video or audio.
That's right.
Yes.
Exactly. It gives an option. You could, if you wanted to, I think I'll do the audio, I think I'll do Zoom, I don't think I'll do any of them. It's not mandatory. It's the way I'm reading this.
When feasible,
It's permissive. It's not mandatory.
correct.
And you're saying just by raising the issue is gonna cause problems.
Oh, you
Or is
couldn't
that-
look at us here. There's six of us,
No.
you know.
From a year's worth of experience, it didn't cause a problem yet.
Yeah. Budget items, you gotta put it in the budget. I wouldn't ask a chair to use their own equipment.
We have them already.
So they would have to come here for
We
work.
have them. Okay.
Get them,
Right.
and then go to the meeting, and then bring it back. I think that's,
Well, you can choose to have your meeting here, or have your meeting wherever you want, but yes, you would have to arrange to get the dictaphone.
More problems, dictaphone.
okay.
That's what it is. It's,
Nobody has those. Oops. On a dictaphone.
well,
Okay, so what,
so-called dictaphones.
what is in
Yeah,
front
what-
of us here? Okay, okay.
Right,
What's
like,
in
are
front
we
of us here?
gonna propose a resolution for it, are we gonna bring it up to the board, are we
Well,
gonna?
right now, the resolution is what I have here. which,
We take it, in other words, it takes out the EC. EC was
Yes.
in there, that's gone.
Goodbye, EC.
So the only change in this resolution is EC is gone from it. This is what we've approved all along with EC. Now, actually, what we're voting on is taking EC out without saying taking EC out.
Actually, there were two other
Right,
changes.
am I
that-
right? Okay.
Two other changes. One recommendation was a word change, both by Steve. A word change, which is not here, which I can't believe I even allowed in the first place. Phrase I hate.
The conference? I'm not trying to guess.
In order. I hate the phrase in order. 99% of the time, if you take it out, it doesn't change the sentence at all. So he took out the word in order. You don't see it there because it,
I mean, committee board members must attend in
2A?
person, in order to, you mean? If they're, again, we just wanna take in order out, I agree, it
I thought I
doesn't
took
do
it out.
anything.
In person to constitute a
Yeah,
quorum?
exactly.
Okay.
And then in C, the cloud account, there is no cloud. It's a concept, so it's not a formal product. So,
Well, it's on a YouTube account, right? That's a cloud account.
but there is no such thing as the cloud.
I hear you, right, it's not capped, yeah, it shouldn't be capped.
Certainly shouldn't be capitalized,
Yeah.
and you may want to explain it a little better.
This meeting is being recorded to the Zoom cloud. It's not being recorded to,
I don't think there's a Zoom cloud either.
there is.
Record the meeting to the,
There is, right?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, we record this meeting, goes to the Zoom cloud. It's what they call the Zoom cloud. And then we go to the Zoom account and we download it from the cloud to our
Local
computers.
computers, or you can have it
And then we upload it to
immediately
YouTube.
saved on the
Zoom,
computer.
call it
The cloud. Yeah.
Okay, then call it the Zoom cloud account.
Or cloud-based account, right. 'Cause it's the idea,
Either one is fine.
cloud-based
Zoom
account.
application and record the meeting to the Zoom cloud.
The cloud-based.
Zoom cloud account.
The Zoom cloud account, yeah.
Many O's.
I'm zooming.
Okay.
Okay, and the other thing he changed, he changed the reference here to the law. He liked that one better. So it's good, it comes from Steve.
But the subsequent viewing isn't coming from the Zoom cloud, it's coming from the YouTube channel. It's broadcasted on the YouTube channel, so the subsequent viewing availability doesn't exist immediately after the Zoom,
So,
It's not,
subsequent viewing ability on YouTube.
on YouTube. There you go, bam.
I'm sorry, where are you now? You've lost me.
I think we're being too specific.
We have to, because there's so many, when you think about cloud-based information, like, everything is a
Yeah,
different
and-
cloud, you know, like,
You don't need to make that change. You record the meeting to the Zoom cloud account for subsequent viewing availability, and
on
that's it.
YouTube, on the CBA YouTube channel.
That's just a ladder procedure. That's got nothing to do with what we're doing or why. What we're trying to do is record the meeting to the Zoom cloud account for subsequent viewing availability. How people go about doing that later on is a different matter.
Go ahead, Judy.
I have a question. So does this, I'm sorry, I'm just reading it now. Does this eliminate the AZA people? Because we have two.
That was a question I raised with Steve earlier. Basically, yes. This text,
For their constituting a quorum.
the question of having availability of Zoom versus being handicapped under the law, disabilities, is not the same thing.
So,
Open meetings, public, utilizing technology to permit access. Okay, we have to provide access for people with disabilities.
okay, but what about the board members?
Well, it's singular now, I think, isn't it?
Excuse me?
Is it singular now? It was two, now it's only one?
Yeah.
Well, until
Georgia.
you have Georgia and Ted.
Ed? Oh, I was not aware of anything. Sorry.
he doesn't come anyway.
We still technically.
Meetings where you protest.
Okay, this says to permit access, but
Right.
it should say to permit, extraordinary circumstances and narrow the AZA. Get out that little loophole there's a loophole in our definitions of AZA.
Sure is.
Which
It's called
I-
a human loophole.
Yeah, so we can't just narrow it down, just to you must be AZA, period, that's it.
Are you allowed to provide capability for ADA that you don't provide to others?
Here,
Yeah, we're talking about board members, for
here's the
hybrid.
original.
Providing EC capability to ADA,
ADA people.
but without allowing it for other board members
If we
then?
put it in our resolution,
We
sure,
can do that?
sure.
It's not discriminatory.
No, that's what the,
So you understand, if some chair or some committee says, I'm so done with Zoom, I'm not doing Zoom, what happens to the ADA person? Do you have to do Zoom to accommodate that one person?
that's what this committee has to
No,
decide.
that's what the law has to decide.
Right.
I'm looking at, this is the original.
Thank you. Figure it out, let me know at the
Right,
end.
'cause I mean, my
It's
question,
who do we grant?
You wanted a change here, I didn't do it, did he? Board chair you didn't want, you wanted something else?
Chairperson. I always think of a chair. That's my pet peeve, yeah.
What, you don't like chair?
I like to sit in a chair, but when I hear a chair, I just think of
chairperson,
a
the role
person.
of chair versus, not.
The title
chair,
chairperson.
I don't see where we put it in, where did I put it?
Extraordinary, okay.
Well,
Oh, right here, letter B. It includes illness, disability, caretaking, other unexpected. Just put ADA, like get rid of. This way, it's open to any board member who's ADA.
Mark, can you go back up to that? B, extraordinary circumstances including illness, disability, under the, provisions of the ADA.
And then it has, or other unexpected circumstances. That's why I give everyone, because that's a loophole.
Well, that's what I'm saying, no, I would drop caretaking and other.
Yeah,
Right.
and just put ADA.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So, extraordinary circumstance, under, illness and disability under the ADA, but
Not
no.
illness. Take away.
Okay, disability, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Disability, fine. Disability as defined in the ADA, but not illness, not, caretaking, not extenuating, other.
You don't even have to put not, just on the ADA.
No, I'm saying,
And then period.
delete that from the sentence.
Yeah.
Just put, disability as defined in the ADA. That's,
A community that you may have, like, people who are blind, or people who, people who can't get out the house, we want to be inclusive. You know?
And what effect will it have? Explain to me what effect it will have. So let's assume a person who fits whatever that definition
Yeah.
is a member of the Public Safety Committee.
Mhm.
What does Ed Green have to do?
Well, that person, if Ed Green or the public safety chairperson doesn't have, a hybrid meeting, then you cannot attend, because hybrid.
Good, so the ADA, whatever that is called,
Yeah.
has no implication whatsoever for that. That's it.
No.
Your
But you-
ADA, you
yeah.
can't go.
Yeah, you pick a committee
Okay.
that is going to have a
Okay,
hybrid
so
meeting.
now pick another committee, and I remember who says,
Well,
okay,
I shouldn't say hybrid, on Zoom.
Zoom. So
Yeah.
you pick another committee who says, so I'll have 50% of my meetings in the board office, but I do want 50% out there in the community.
Mhm.
And the places don't have Zoom capability. What happens to the ADA person then? Does that board chair have an obligation to pick a place so that ADA person can participate? That's my question. And I'm not saying yes or no, and I'm saying it should be
Yes
or
and no.
shouldn't be.
It's yes and no. It's yes in that,
Will the board
The
have
venue
all
would have
meetings
to.
on Zoom? Then it would come to that.
Or in a venue that's ADA compliant, no?
No.
Well, then it says no meeting, they just
No.
call it ADA.
This is only on Zoom.
Mm.
It would have to be like 50% meetings on Zoom, 50% not on Zoom. That's what.
And
you-
if there's no Zoom, what happens to the ADA person?
If there's no Zoom?
For whatever reason,
There might-
whether it be public safety, whether it be economic development, whether it be a committee that says, I want half my meetings here with Zoom
Yeah.
and half my meetings out there in the community where there is no Zoom. What impact does the ADA portion of this have? And I'm not being.
No, that's
Okay.
good, those are good points.
the chair of the committee must provide ADA capability at the site.
That's different. This
I
is
know, I know, I realize that, but in terms of Zoom, no.
Well, by picking the site, it's self-determinant.
No.
Okay, so, okay.
I think most committees are doing Zoom anyway.
That's not
But
responsive to the question.
if they decide not to do Zoom, then the
I
ADA
think-
person cannot attend.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, see, I think every meeting should be available on
I
Zoom.
know what you think should be, but we're talking about, okay.
Well, but that's why I want to lead toward that, that's all.
I put C in here. Does that satisfy anybody?
Change, lowercase is, extraordinary circumstance is.
And you could take out that extra dot, unless it's my eyes.
Well, to me, it doesn't answer the question, but anyway.
Yeah, they're two separate, yeah.
Lowercase I, Marty.
Okay.
The I in circumstance is sentence.
So how many meetings well, you can't even require.
Most committees should
Yeah.
have 10 meetings, right?
Now, I'm saying you can't make a chair.
Extraordinary circumstance is lowercase I.
If you put
Yeah.
ADA and there's some required, then everybody is locked in to only picking a place with Zoom. Do you understand the implications of
I
it?
understand.
So, once again, is that the implication of it?
Then you guys
Define
have to
under the
discuss
Americans.
Zoom on the Zoom aspect then, because they're two separate entities. So you have to take care of Zoom in order to take care of
It's an elephant in the room and
hybrid.
we're not addressing it.
Hmm?
The elephant in the room is, does ADA trump everything else? And we have to provide access for ADA. If that is what the law requires, then all this rest
So
is...
we do have access for ADA because all the meeting places that we have are ADA
It
accessible.
doesn't mean that you know the chair of different committees can hold meetings in different places.
Right, but they're all the ADA accessible.
No, and public safety is?
Actually,
And economic
the
development?
precinct does not, the precinct does not have the ramp.
They can
Oh,
go
it
in,
does in the back.
but they can go in through the gas station. It's ADA compliant.
Then I don't understand the two people we're talking about who can't show
Well,
up.
see, what happens here is, under this definition with, the ADA for, EC, you, in a way, you're discriminating because public safety and economic development, a disabled person cannot participate via EC, therefore that's discriminating. They can only participate if they go to the site, but they have less opportunity than any other board member. So that creates a complication, which one could make a lawsuit out of. Not saying they'd win, but they could litigate it.
Well, keep talking about it on Zoom so everybody
Or,
can hear
or
it.
we would let them know that these
Fine.
two particular committees do not meet, via Zoom.
Are you then saying an ADA, a disabled person can't join those two committees?
If they went,
Say what?
if they physically went.
But if under the ADA, an individual should have the same rights and capabilities as anybody else. And if if I'm disabled, I can join any committee except for public safety or, economic development. Therefore, I'm being
No,
discriminated
because
against.
you're not discriminating them for any meetings that are on Zoom, because the hybrid only pertains to Zoom meetings.
So then what we're saying is Zoom is mandatory.
No, it's not mandatory.
Oh, okay.
This is something I think you should bring to the legal department, because the way I look at it, it's,
That's us.
okay.
Law, rules, and
the
ethics.
ADA, the hybrid deals with Zoom meetings. Okay, all our meetings are in a physical location. We're no longer on Zoom meetings. So all our meetings are accessible and open to all.
If I'm a disabled board member and
and I cannot, and I am able to join any meeting via Zoom, okay? Except for public safety, economic development, I'm being discriminated against.
That's a big leap, David, and,
All right.
I really, listen,
Right, we could bounce around it, right.
we need to understand what the ADA law, whether it's stated in meetings or what have you, what it mandates us to do. You can't go forward with any of this unless we understand that.
I added a second sentence under C, which may answer part of that.
It's limited to board members, but,
Such member is to be counted in the quorum. That was a change in the law last year.
Right. ACA people are,
Now, I don't know who we have on the board who qualifies under ADA.
and who makes that decision?
The law is very specific.
if they say they're AZA, they're AZA.
I don't have a phone, I can't use Zoom, is not ADA. If I am ill, I use a cane, I'm not ADA.
Such members to be counted in the quorum? That isn't what EC is today.
No.
That's it.
No, it's not.
The law was changed last year.
We found out when we were in the webinar, that if you have EC, if you're AZA and coming on Zoom.
Counted in quorum.
Yeah, you're counted in the quorum.
So not EC, only ADA.
Only ADA.
Such member, yes. I was not aware of that definition, but that's good to know.
I just think putting extraordinary circumstance in there, can confuse, because we have lived with the concept of extraordinary circumstance, and we're getting rid of that concept. What?
I agree.
Well, hang on, Marty. Extraordinary circumstance is now limited to board members with disabilities.
Board members with this, you see what you just did? You just
No,
did it,
board
right?
members with disabilities, as
As
defined
defined
under
under-
ADA,
You know, can be counted in quorum, the end, like,
can be, are.
counted in quorum, yeah.
It's less confusing, you know?
Yeah, take the ECs, let's stop talking ECs.
Right?
Oh, I see, yes, you're right, yes. Extraordinary circumstances are really just not relevant.
I have no idea.
It's just as.
Not relevant.
Oh,
No,
okay.
the keyboard stuff.
Do the alignment, there's an extra space in front of board. Is that what it is? Just delete another space, yeah, okay. Is that what it is? And then the other one too.
I can't say,
You don't need a format now, we can format later.
But you have to
What members with
insert in
disabilities
there
define-
something that they can attend via Zoom.
Is the font of the letter C.
As quorum, comma, and they attend via
as
Zoom.
defined under the
There
American
is a
Rules.
Zoom. Don't, you just say Zoom,
And
that means
are-
that,
They put, and may attend via Zoom if Zoom is
Available.
or used, or whatever word. So we have to put that they may, otherwise that forces them to have to come to a physical meeting.
Via video conference, teleconferencing, Marty.
Everybody except for AZA people.
Except for ADA.
So that in there, he puts, and are available to attend via Zoom if, whatever wording, if Zoom is used, or whatever.
Now, I said the rest
Still
of the
doesn't
one.
answer your question.
I know.
That's something,
We say
Video
telecommunications.
that's
teleconferencing,
something
video
that
slash
has to be answered
teleconferencing.
downtown. Because it's a new concept of Zoom, so. Because if some boards don't even, they don't have to use Zoom, so if you don't use Zoom,
Or-
some boards don't even use Zoom.
That's right.
So,
Remove the R
It's
after
all
act?
you. We want to be inclusive and keep the people to attend, but we also want the Zoom to be able to be used for outsiders.
You know,
Public.
no other community board is doing this, you know that.
It's a shame.
Okay.
So are we getting rid of D, keeping D? Is there a, want to vote on the issue? All those in favor of removing it, say, raise, identify yourself.
Can we, right,
Very
real quick discussion, like, just wanna clarify, right? Audio recordings of the meeting will be made available by the board's website within 5 days. Do we have that? Like, I wanna get rid of it just because, like, we don't even do that for the Zoom. So like, why are we forcing it on the audio recording?
And I would only vote for it if it is, permissive and not mandatory.
Right, so then
There's nothing
why
wrong
get rid of
with
it, like, why even have it?
Yeah.
Telecommunications, the resolution that we voted on tomorrow is going to say exactly the same thing. When available, when permissible, at the discretion of the chair.
I can see the camera upside down. Comma. Thank you.
I'm with removing it completely.
Which one, D?
D, yeah.
We have audio in the video.
What about when you don't have the
Yeah,
video?
well,
It does teleconference.
Then you have minutes.
The minutes don't do it, you know the minutes don't do
Yeah.
it. You know it.
I think it's just saying.
If you have the recordings, and then you're gonna put the recordings online?
How different is it from the video?
As far as I'm concerned, you can take it out. This is not, it's not where, the fact remains is any committee member, and it would be good to say them, you know, you can audio record your meeting.
Mhm.
Okay, you can do that, okay? But you put this up there, we'll be forever talking about. But this ADA thing. And again, nobody decides it, it's self-determinant, given the
No, they
definition
have,
in the law?
yes, the definition is in the law. And basically it says, am I right, Marty, that if they say that the AZA, if they say that the AZA, we have to take that, there's nothing that they have to
No.
submit?
There is, yes.
Because she told us
If
don't
they
ask.
say I have three whatever, we don't have to examine them.
So is self,
Self-reporting.
yeah.
Self-identifying.
Yeah, like we can't say, okay, what is it?
It's like,
There is a definition of it.
it's like saying that whether you have a therapy
Don't ask.
service dog.
She said, right, but she also got us in trouble before. We don't deal with ADA, do whatever you're doing. So, but it's right here, the disabilities as defined under Executive Law 292. It exists. I didn't copy it down for this tonight, but it is quite specific. But again, as pointed out, we're not going to verify.
Okay, can you make a copy of that? Sure.
Yes. Do you want it now? We would have to meet.
I don't need, okay.
I'll make a copy once the meeting's over.
Here.
Thank you.
Oh, you want a line chair with your name?
Yeah, I put in chairperson.
And then, yeah, you gotta cut the extra paragraph.
Okay, so let's try this again. Aye.
But it is clear, and it will be stated, that the extraordinary circumstances concept is now gone.
I mean, right.
Am I right?
Right.
All purposes, yeah.
Good.
Do we need to like vote, like, 'cause
Your
Yeah,
committee
sure.
needs to vote.
So you have to go to new.
tomorrow, well, it's.
No, the
Marty, I don't
committee
think anybody's
votes today.
looking
Okay.
So this way it's a resolution from.
Yeah, you wanna vote from
I wanna leave
LRE on
this
that.
behind. Need to vote first, that's right. I'm gonna leave this behind. Somehow. Artie will tell me how to do that.
Okay, can I make a motion to approve the resolution?
Yes, you may.
I make a motion to approve this resolution.
Second.
Made and seconded. You were for or against? I'm for, so
In
unanimous.
favor.
What about
Sylvia,
Sylvia?
Sylvia.
The last
I
EC.
haven't been recognized or anything. I have no opinion on anything. I don't know
Thank
why
you.
I'm here.
Have you raised your hand? Have I missed you?
What?
Have you raised your hand? Have I missed you?
No, I did not raise my hand because I don't know how to do it anymore because it has changed. So therefore, I am a silent participant.
Well, your microphone still works. You could have announced your intent.
Will this take in effect for the beginning of the next term? July
This
first?
will take effect,
immediately.
yeah, I've resumed. Right after the meeting is over, it take effect if the vote is passed.
As the last one did, right? We voted, it took effect
Well,
immediately.
In theory. It didn't take effect till several months later, when the mayor got rid of the emergency situation.
Okay, got it. That's not an issue, there's nothing that bars us from this coming
Correct.
to effect immediately.
Nothing from barring us.
Okay.
So Sylvia voting or?
Sylvia says she doesn't want to vote.
Okay, no vote.
So, where am I now? Okay, so we have to go back and get this. And you told me, how do I get back?
Click on the word, icon at the bottom, right there, click, okay. Let's, oh. Go up, yep, right there.
Okay, so we're done here.
May I just ask one question? And I'm afraid of, tomorrow. If this resolution fails, what will the state of our, board be?
You see,
We're gonna keep trying and,
No, this is a serious question because this is date sensitive. So we'll have nothing? You understand what I'm
an
asking?
alternative.
I think the resolution, maybe review it, didn't say we have to, didn't have to renew it. So I don't think there's a sunset on this.
So everything that was, so it would just continue the way it was?
I think that's correct.
Until May
I
31st.
thought there was a date.
Until May 31st, no?
For us to review it, I don't know that,
You review it and either
Yeah.
continue it or not.
Yeah.
That's the,
okay, well, I need to go back and look at the resolution that was passed. And
If this doesn't pass, then
you had us,
no, it depends what the original resolution said.
Correct.
We could wind up with being with the rest of the boards in the Bronx and not having hybrids.
what am I?
Should we just have a second resolution saying that we're
well, then
gonna-
that gets rid of the EDC, but it doesn't protect the
What are you
ADA.
looking for?
I want to
It's
get
just one of
back
those arguments
into,
to say you should
well,
vote for
it is.
this.
Yeah.
No, that's, you wanna go to the website?
Yeah, I'm almost in the right place. Board meeting agendas.
You wanna go to the helpful resources, all the way at the
I
bottom?
want
On the
to
home
see if I can find quickly.
Go to home. Isn't it on the home?
No, I want full board meetings, I want not the agenda, I want the minutes.
Okay, you have the minutes on the left side.
You see minutes? Click on minutes.
Because Marty, on the home page, it has a hybrid resolution.
There wasn't a resolution.
No, it's the original that we have to look into. It's on the home page.
So the
When
resolutions
you
are
scroll
filed
down,
separately?
yeah.
Okay.
That was on, that was on
So
there.
there's two ways to get it.
There's the hybrids right there.
Okay,
Hybrid
so it's
resolution May,
May 2022, okay.
whereas
Wow, everybody wanted it.
on May 10th,
We
Yeah.
got really into it.
whereas, I don't see a time.
No, therefore be resolved, at their discretion, Dove Hybrid to provide. With the condition, the board will
After 6 months.
review its efficacy after 6 months, when at such time a vote on its renewal will take place.
Okay, it was more than 6 months, but okay.
Go further down, Marty.
We're past the 6 months, that's what we
No, there's a couple.
No, and then there's another one,
There's more resolutions on the homepage. They're all there. Well,
but
maybe
it all
one.
brings us back
Yes,
to May.
to May.
It'll be the,
That may, like, we have to either vote to
Boy, this-
renew it or
I
get
asked
rid
the
of it.
right question.
Okay, where do you see that? Which whereas is that?
Therefore, be
Therefore, it be it resolved at the last sentence.
Therefore be resolved, the last line, after 6 months, when at such time a vote
Okay.
on its renewal will take place.
Perfect, okay. Perfect.
So you'll have
That's
two
helpful, so
resolutions.
that's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
That will push people to, if you want to vote down this resolution that
No,
Hillary is
only
bringing
bring it
forward?
up if it fails. Because if
Right.
they know they could continue it.
Well, we're past 6 months, can't we just
No.
immediately?
This is all, they have more on the homepage. And
No, it would have to be a separate vote just to renew this without anything. Okay, you think that, you
Can we-
think that would pass?
No, if this one, if you
If
give
this
them an
fails-
option, say, listen, we can continue this, they may go for it. I recommend, don't even bring this up unless that fails.
We're making a recommendation, that's,
Yeah.
and so.
If that fails, then say, okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
Now there has to be a vote for renewal.
yeah, but I wouldn't
I wouldn't vote for it.
Wouldn't
start it.
start with that, we're
Yeah.
gonna start our
Actually-
resolution and then.
Actually, law, rules, and ethics is promoting or proposing a resolution.
Yes.
Fine. If it fails, then you've got to bring up the renewal.
Or like the.
They're two completely separate things.
Important to know.
Good to know.
All right,
Thank you. I'm gonna rush through the rest.
please.
Well, actually, I turned it over to the Law, Rules, and Ethics Committee, so I don't see why I would have to. 'Cause this,
If our resolution fails,
yeah, then it was Law.
we always look to the chair of the
Okay.
board to,
I would
say.
have thought that the committee would have two, say, okay.
I mean, the worst that would happen is that we wouldn't have a resolution,
No, we
and
have
there'd be
one.
no EC
That's the point.
until the following meeting.
All right.
Okay.
Where they vote something else, otherwise
Right.
it's over.
Yeah.
The resolution is, it's sunset.
Yeah, no, I want to present the AZA people, so I'll have a backup ready.
Okay, I just pointed this out when Alex was here, which I found amazing. And in April 23, Assistant Deputy, make it bigger, Department of Corrections, and Captain in the New York City Department of Corrections, each accepted pairs of Gucci sandals as a holiday gift from a group of 9 subordinates. The city's conflict of interest law prohibits a public servant from accepting holiday gift of more than $10. Each paid $1,800 fine. To the board, this position is attached. Now, that's done, finished.
Oh.
Now,
Gucci
the
sandals
question,
are
the
worth
question
more
was
than-
recidivism, because this is the same people which prohibits free subordinate relationship, and a deputy, warden, correction accepted $4,000 and 59.
To pay for the disciplinary.
Holy shit.
That's what you call chutzpah.
Yeah, really. Oh, my goodness. I didn't quite catch that last time.
That is chutzpah, that really is.
$10,000 fine, good.
Okay, but they're now former.
Yeah.
And this is a case of a real idiot.
Right, oh, fine, $10,000, okay. Misuse of his position, I'm good.
Okay.
Real idiot. Okay, spreadsheet, I just saw this, it clicked on me, resolution, and I have not been able, you tell me how later. I have not been able to find the verbiage with this resolution. But apparently they're moving to expand use of, open meetings law, which I found fascinating. And I sent this to you, I'm sure. I sent you in the cover letter. Okay, old business, new business, show business.
None.
Okay, next meeting is June 10th, 2024. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Anyone objecting?
Thank you, Marty.
Marty,